Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. So as they mentioned, my name is Daniel Andrade. I serve as the career specialist for the College of the Arts, but I'm here on behalf of the Career Center to talk more about how you all as student leaders can kind of put that experience on your resume and how you can use that in your future careers. So just to get things started, I want to talk a little bit about NACE Career Readiness Competencies. NACE is the National Association for Colleges and Employers. Here at the Career Center, we use a lot of their work. We are actually a member of this association, but essentially we've identified 8 areas where employers have essentially said that in order to be career ready, finishing up your higher education journey, you should be very well versed in these areas. So you'll see a lot of them, we try to integrate them in our workshops. A lot of you all kind of already work on these in your classes, even, as campus leaders. The one for today that I kind of want to highlight is how you can demonstrate critical thinking. And through this workshop, we sort of want to highlight you all identifying job qualifications and how you can match and develop a plan. You can tailor your resumes, your cover letters to make you an ideal candidate for your future employment opportunities. But essentially, I want you all to kind of keep these in mind as you're kind of continuing to be involved on campus, doing projects in your classes. And these are really like the skills you want to continue to develop to make sure that you all can have very fruitful careers. All right, so what is a resume? By a raise of hand, who has like a resume right now? I mean, not on you, but like you've developed one, okay? Who's updated it in like the last few weeks, maybe last month or so? Okay, most of you, cool. Yeah, so essentially a resume, this just gives employers or whoever you might be submitting that resume to, it gives them a good snapshot of your work experience, right? Volunteer experience, extracurricular, you all as student leaders, that's really valuable experience. Accomplishments, academic achievement, all of that, it just gives a snapshot of your professional background to these companies, organizations, and employers that you're applying to. So it's really good. That's kind of your way to show off all that you've done and accomplished, your skills and background on a cool little page. Here is sort of the essentials for a resume. So you always want to include, obviously, your personal data. You include that in your header. Obviously, like your name, your contact information, your email. Sometimes you might include like your LinkedIn profile, your city of residence. Then your objective. Sometimes you can include that in objective, or sometimes you might see like a summary, and that's sort of just giving a quick little statement saying like what this resume is intended for, or giving a quick 1 or 2 sentence summary about your background experience. Some of the other key areas are to include your education, right? Even as current students, you want to highlight that you are a student, that you're pursuing this particular degree in this particular major field, stating sort of when you intend to graduate, or maybe you already did graduate. For those of you who may be transfer students, you also want to include that you did obtain your associates or any other certificates prior to coming to Cal State Fullerton. Then in your experience, this will look very different for all of you, right? Depending on maybe you have some internship experience, volunteer experience. Some of y'all might have a part-time job. A lot of that can look very different for each of you. But one thing that you might all have in common is that as student leaders, you can use that as your experience. So that's really what we're going to talk about a lot today. And then other activities such as being involved on campus, other things you might be involved with, and a skills section. So these are all sort of the essentials that you'd have on a resume. Continuing on that, sort of what you should always include, kind of what I just mentioned in the previous one. So contact info, education, experience, highlighting a lot of this leadership experience, and a skills section. For skills, though, I want to emphasize that you should only include what we call hard skills. So you don't want to include none of that soft skills, which might be like communication, teamwork. A lot of those aren't super like measurable, I would say. So instead, you want to include like computer technical skills that you're familiar with, that you're proficient in. For example, I work with a lot of artists, a lot of digital artists. So for example, like my graphic design students might include that they're proficient in Photoshop, or they might include that they're proficient with all these like Adobe software. So think of what's relevant in your field and what you can highlight these skills that you're really well-versed in and proficient in. Some other sections you all can consider adding to a resume, really depending on sort of what you want to highlight within your background, also what's super relevant to these jobs and internships you're applying to. But that can include a related coursework section. So maybe you are a accounting student or finance student and you want to highlight that you took like some upper division class within that field to really showcase that you know that material really well. So that's a good thing you can add to a resume. Course projects, say you did like a mock business proposal as part of one of your class projects, you can highlight that in its own section on your resume. Work, volunteer experience, as I've mentioned, club and organizations, right? You all being here, you all being very active, being leaders, that's something you want to add on there. Honors and awards, scholarships, so really highlighting a lot of your academic achievements as well. And then other things such as professional development, right? Something like this, LeadCon, this is a professional development opportunity. Or say you're part of some professional association or you went to some conference, all of that can be things that you highlight on a resume. So now for formatting your resume. So here's sort of the standard, kind of the common way to format your resume. Some of you, it might look a little bit different, but for the most part, I'd encourage you all to stick to the standard. Most frequently used type of resume would be reverse chronological. So what that means is that you're always putting your most recent experience, your most recent education first. So say you had an internship that you did right now in the spring, that would be the first thing that you list in your experience versus like one of your part-time jobs that you had like a year or two ago, that might go further down on your resume. So always listing things in reverse chronological with the most recent experiences and education first. You only want to include any information that's super relevant or related to that job or internship you're applying to, right? Anything that really helps you to stand out to be that ideal candidate. Margins, stick to 1-inch margin. The smallest might be like 0.5 inch, but that you want to stay around that, that frame. Your font, keep it to 11 to 12 inches, or sorry, I guess, yeah, 11, 12-inch font, or point font, sorry. And then margins, making sure everything's just like super aligned, like you don't want anything sticking out like a sore thumb. Everything should be really, clean and spaced well, all the margins aligned. No color font. I know we see a lot of templates out there that have like all these pretty fonts and using little color and design. We typically recommend avoid doing that. Like I mentioned, in some industries, there might be fine to do little pops of color, but for the standard, trying to avoid that as much as possible. And then for your bullets, just use statements or like phrases. You want to avoid using like I statements. You want to avoid like putting full sentences on your bullet points in your experience. You can just put like quick little action statements, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit. This is one thing that we see pretty common in resumes. You might see a lot of templates that have like double columns or more than that. You want to avoid that, as much as possible. Try and just stick to one column, as you'll see in this one, right? Everything's kind of just in one single column versus having these all separated in multiple. A lot of recruiters, a lot of employers use like AI technology, or they use what they call their applicant tracking system, and having things kind of in multiple columns or different formatting issues might kind of hurt you through those technologies that they use. So do your best to put everything in a single column. All right. So some of you who might, be super involved on campus, right, keeping up with your academics may not have the opportunity to have a job, or maybe you're still looking and haven't found one. So is it bad if you haven't had a formal job before? Not necessarily. As I've mentioned and alluded to before, there's a lot of different type of experience that you all can really highlight on a resume, which I would always encourage you all to do. So obviously, extracurriculars, as you all are super involved on campus, is what you can put for your experience, right? So many of you in here who are involved in clubs, maybe you hold some sort of leadership position, or you've just been a member in multiple clubs, that's good to highlight. Any volunteer experience, say you volunteered in an after-school program, or you volunteered at like a local clinic, that's really good experience. Community service, any athletes, if you're involved in sports, all of this showcases different skill sets that you want to highlight and show that, you can do that job or internship you're applying to very well. So obviously different types of clubs that you can highlight. It can be academic, if you're part of an honor society or some kind of academic fraternity, cultural, those that might be more identity-based organizations, social, right? Maybe you're just part of something more fun, more unique, or career. Those of you that might be a little more industry-specific clubs, such as the advertising club or the accounting society. So all of these are really good things to include on a resume, include in your experience. All right, so now how might you put that experience on a resume? One thing you all want to start off by doing, even those who might already have a resume kind of up to date, you can always kind of do some of the brainstorming on what you can add or enhance on your current resume. So really just reflect and think back to examples of your past experience. And again, that can be very broadly like different types of experience, leadership, volunteer, community service. And that's just identifying what type of content you might be able to add to your resume that is applicable to these jobs you will be applying for or internships, and what's going to showcase your uniqueness. So here are some suggestions, right? So creating a list of your past involvements, thinking about what did you do, who did you work with, how long did it take, maybe a project that you worked on that was over several months or maybe over the span of a semester. How much of something did you oversee? So maybe you kind of stepped up, took lead on something, so that can showcase your leadership experience. And then this last bullet point, kind of one of the most important ones, what was the action, purpose, and result of your different responsibilities? So I want you all to really kind of think about that action, purpose, and result, because that's sort of the secret formula on how to present experience on a resume. And then once you do have sort of your brainstorming, you put sort of this list together, then you want to start highlighting, really looking more closely at it, circling what might be considered quantifiable. So what you can really measure and kind of put out there, thinking of things like fundraising, thinking of like maybe you manage the budget, maybe you hosted a workshop with X amount of attendees, or you put together like College of the Arts Week, you had this many attendees. And again, emphasizing action, purpose, and result whenever you start putting this on your resume. Here are some examples of sort of the do's and don'ts on when you're highlighting some of your, whether it be a job or in leadership experience. So for example, those of you, maybe you are on the board, maybe you're a president, you help to raise money for various material, and you ran meetings with the team. Like, yes, that's essentially what you did, but now kind of thinking of that action, purpose, result, quantifying how you can really elaborate on that experience. Instead of raised money for various material, you developed a $2,000 budget that included bus transportation, test prep, and food, right? It's kind of still the same meaning, but you added a bit more, like a bit more context, a bit more like professional tone in a sense. Or the other one, for example, you ran meetings with the team. Maybe you're leading the weekly meetings. You supervised a team of 26 undergraduates on housing, finance, and logistics in order to execute outreach program, right? So you want to add a little bit more context and detail to it. You see that we're trying to quantify as much as possible, right? $2,000 budget, a team of 26. You're still getting the same meaning, but you're kind of just adding a little more seasoning to it. Or those of you, maybe you have an on-campus job or a part-time job, you gave out money. Instead of that, process applications and distribute $50,000 of funding for organizations to execute outreach programs. So think of how you can really enhance some of the experience you already have and really frame it in that professional manner that'll help you to stand out as an applicant. All right, so here I'll talk more about that whole action, purpose, and result. And while you're also doing this, you want to think of what keywords you can highlight and utilize within your own field or industry within your major, and how you can connect that to the industry, to the job description, maybe professional associations. Really just be well versed in that language and in the verbiage that is used. So don't think of like duties or responsibilities. You don't want to just like put like a long list of duties and responsibilities. You really want to make this like an action statement when you're developing your experience section. So the formula for action, you're always starting with strong action verbs. So developed, facilitated, you led, you hosted. The purpose is emphasizing what was the method or the scope in which you did that particular action. And then the result is what positive outcome happened because you did that. All right, so think of that as you continue to enhance and come up with your bullet points for your experience. Typically, you want to have 3 to 5 bullet points per experience. That's kind of the rule of thumb. And then for verbs, always check whether it's past or present. We see this very often. Say it was an internship you did in the fall, but all of your action verbs are still in the present tense. So that's something that you'd want to switch and make sure that it's something from the past. So here's another example, right? So this is a leadership experience, someone who was co-chair for the Human Services Student Association. So kind of thinking in that action purpose result, the action, they developed a $500 budget, sort of what was the method, the scope, the purpose, utilizing Excel. And then the result was to execute College of HHD Week club activity, right? So we're really incorporating that formula of action, purpose, result in these bullet points. And then again, you keep seeing these numbers, right? Because you're trying to quantify as much as possible, because that'll really paint a really clear picture for whoever's reading your resume and application setting, the recruiters, whatever the case is. So with that, sorry, 1 second, getting ahead of myself. I want to point you all to our career guide. This is a physical booklet that we have at the Career Center, but this will give you access to the digital PDF version. But essentially, we highlight the same information. So action, purpose, result, the little formulas on there and giving you a description of how to utilize that. And then we literally have a big 2-page section of action verbs that you all can steal and take from, kind of how to really emphasize the action and the experiences that you're doing. So feel free to scan this. I'll leave it up for another minute. If you don't get a chance to, it's on our Career Center website, so you're always welcome to refer back to that. All right. But now I want you all to put that into practice. So how can you really brainstorm and reflect on what you're doing as a student leader and create some bullet points that you might be able to put on your experience? So we left a couple of pages on the table, so feel free to grab that worksheet. And then if you have a pen or paper, you can start jotting down some of that. So in the first column, you're going to put the action, describe what you did. The second column, you'll include purpose and result. So let's take a few minutes and get some examples going, and then we'll come back and see what we came up with. All right, let's take about 1 more minute to wrap up any final thoughts you might have. All right, let's bring it back to the group. Would anyone, can I get some brave volunteers to share maybe what they came up with? Anybody? I saw some pretty good ones out there. Sure. Cool. With your round of applause. Thank you for that. I think instead of saying helped facilitate, just say facilitated. Start out with a strong action verb. Yeah, but that's a good bullet point. Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead. Cool. Yeah. Round of applause for that example. That's another really good one. Now, what I mentioned earlier, quantifying. So maybe how many attendees might have gone to it. Thinking of other things you can add more context for that, but really good bullet point. Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead. Nice. Yeah, that's a good one. Round of applause. Yeah, that one sounds like it might have been 2 bullet points because then you mentioned you promoted like XYZ. So then that could also be kind of separated into two, but really, really good bullet points there. Thank you. Any other brave souls? Yes, that's a great one. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Round of applause. Awesome. Maybe one more. Anybody? Go ahead. Awesome. I love that. Yeah, round of applause. All right. Yeah. So thank you for sharing, all of you. And those who didn't, hopefully you got some good ideas. This is something you can continue to incorporate as really thinking about what you're going to be doing this upcoming semester, this upcoming school year, and how you can add that to your resume utilizing this really cool formula. All right. So going back to our career guide, please again utilize this as much as you can. Besides some of the things that I mentioned, like the action verbs and the little action purpose result formula, there's a lot of other content. Those of you who might have scanned it, you saw that we have a lot of good insight on there. It's a great resource. So please utilize it If those of you who are planning on going to graduate school, maybe you have an upcoming interview, a lot of tips on there. So please utilize it as much as you can. You can even get the physical copy within our office. So you can stop by the Career Center and pick one up if you want the physical version. And then who's heard of hydration? A couple of you, okay, some. All right, so this is our online platform, which essentially uses AI ChatGPT to help you to enhance your cover letter, your resume. You can do mock interviews on there. You can upload your LinkedIn profile and get some feedback on that as well. So this is available 24/7. You just do it on your own. Can't see the link there, but it's on our Career Center website. So please visit that. This resource is available to all current Cal State Fullerton students. So it's a resource that's there for you. Yeah, really cool online resource. And now I'd like to open it up for questions. Does anyone have any questions for me?